The National Assembly and the presidency many times have been at daggers drawn over different national issues, the latest of which is President Muhammad Buhari's rejection of the proposed Electoral Act Amendment Bill.
Indeed. Now, both houses of the National Assembly say they are in agreement on the next line of action in response to the president's stance, which could be a possible veto of the president on the matter. But the Federal High Court has ordered the National Assembly to hold off any action on the bill, a decision the National Assembly says it will contest.
Now, the lawmakers say the court is interfering in the workings of the National Assembly, and the Senate has decided to write to the Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Walter Onokan, to express reservations about the court order stopping it from overriding President Buhari's veto.
It is my view that in order to forestall this kind of situation happening in future, that this Senate should view this matter very seriously. And I will suggest, and my prayer will be just a single prayer, that we should notify and write a letter to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, informing him of the latest situation, and then, of course, reminding him of the separation of powers as enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution.
The matter at stake does not require any court intervention. This is democracy at work. I don't believe with that amendment. I voted against it. I'll vote against it tomorrow. But it behoves on me to talk to my colleagues to see the way I see it. Or if you want me to abandon my position, talk to me. And that is how our democracy will develop.
All right. Now, if amended, the bill alters the order of national elections, making National Assembly elections to come first ahead of presidential and governorship polls. Indeed. Now, those are not, just for the record, that is not the only amendment that was put forth. There are several other amendments that the National Assembly is proposing. But we have joining us in the studio as 2019 presidential aspirant Ahmed Buhari, joining us right now. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Nice to see you.
Same here.
Right. And joining us on phone is a lawyer, Wahab Shitu. Wahab, good morning. It's good to have you join us as well. Okay. All right. We'll certainly connect the lines and have him back on course to discuss this. Now, Ahmed, let me come to you on this first. There seems to be so much wrangling on the issue of the sequence of election. From you, at least you have an interest now as far as this is concerned.
Exactly.
But why is this so much of a big deal if the presidential election comes first or comes in the middle or comes last?
Thank you. So again, you know, this is democracy, and that's why I find democracy as something that's very difficult for us to manage sometimes. It's got its pluses and minuses, as the case may be, but frankly speaking, I think as we look into this matter, there are three things that we have to put into consideration: upholding our law, protecting the people, and ensuring our democracy survives. And so, very well so, if you look at it critically, you will understand with me and agree with me that all that is going on right now has to, first of all, protect these three things I just mentioned. When we see a distraction from that level, we know that it's not really for the betterment of the Nigerian people, and then it calls for a lot of concern. So I think the stage we are right now is the judiciary, the arm of government, the judiciary trying to say we're going to hold up this for a while to see when all the facts come together. When all the facts come together, we're going to now decide and say, okay, fine, based on the facts that we have on ground, we're going to either, you know, find out or decide and present to the people if this is a matter that falls within our jurisdiction or not within our jurisdiction. So this is the court trying as much as possible to stay on the fence, because I think it is so complicated, because we've got a political angle to this and we've got a legal angle to this, and these two things keep interfering with each other as we try to give ourselves a better democracy, uphold our law, and protect the people.
Now, but can this be seen from what the senators are saying? Like we just played a report where the senator from Senator Pabio from Akwa Ibom City saying that the judiciary should allow the National Assembly carry out their constitutional responsibility. Can this be seen as a direct interference when there's an order to prevent the National Assembly from amending a bill?
Again, this is a democracy. So the judiciary is allowed to review, the presidency is allowed to veto, and the legislature is allowed to override. So each and every one of these arms of government has been put in place to ensure that none of these other arms of government exerts too much power, as the case may be. So right now what we're looking at is they've got a legislature that has to override, if it wants to, the veto of the president. And in trying to achieve this, what we're going to be looking at for very clearly is to see how this arm of government is going to get at least 75% votes within itself to ensure that it can actually override the veto of the president. So these are just constitutional matters enshrined in the Constitution. This is not the first time it has happened. It happened in 2002 during the President Obasanjo's regime, when he tried as much as possible to change the dates, and his veto on the matter was being overridden by the legislature. So again, this is not the first time, it's not new. What we expect the people to start thinking of really is to say, if you are representing us in the upper chamber or in the lower chamber, whenever there is a matter that is being brought up, your first concern is, I need to get back to my constituency. Sit down with the stakeholders and tell them, this is the matter on ground, guys. What do we do? How do we decide? And based on what your people tell you, based on what the stakeholders tell you, you go back to the house and say, my answer is either a yes or a no, not a nay and a, and just, you know, just decide like that. I think this is why we're not appreciating the process. Because at the end of the day, you are a representative, not for yourself, but for the people. And your ability to decide or take a stand would have to do with the decision of the people, not your decision. And this is what exactly I want us to start looking at, and how we can help, you know, figure out the best possible way to ensure that we protect our democracy, protect our people, and ensure that we uphold our laws.
Okay. Besides the issue of the sequence of the election that is causing so much outrage or so much controversy amongst politicians,
yes,
there are other array of amendments that have been pushed or proposed by the National Assembly. And one of them is the issue of how much parties should allow the presidential candidates to pay for nomination forms. Now, that has not really been, it's always been left in the hands of political parties to decide how much you want to put as a price tag for your nomination forms for the president or the governor or the whoever. But they're coming to say that I think for any political party that is going to field the presidential candidate, the amount for nomination forms shouldn't be more than 10 million. Now, when it comes to the issue of opening up the space, we certainly will not forget the not too young to run and,
yes,
and all of those acts and the bill and so on. 10 million. How many young people can afford 10 million in the first place?
Not many.
Okay.
And not many old people as well, you know. So again, these are the kind of problems we envisage in our democracy. The moment you make democracy too expensive, it actually destroys the ability of politicians, should they emerge, to actually deliver good democracy or dividends of democracy, as the case may be. And this is because each time, and I keep saying this and I keep repeating it, each time politicians look for stakeholders or themselves, put their hands in their pockets and put into an election process, a campaign process, they'll definitely want to recoup this money when they get into office. So we have to start thinking deeply and thinking quickly on how best we can resolve the issues around ensuring that our democracy is not so expensive. I understand that the bar and all of that is just to help restrict the number of people that are going to come into the fore. But if coming into the fore is going to start demanding for your intellectual capacity, your track records, your antecedents, I'm sure we would have something else to look at and not how much money people are bringing out from their pockets. Okay,
there's also the proposal by the National Assembly in the bill they passed that there will be, and they've approved the electronic transmission of results from the polling units to the center, to collation center, and all of that.
Yes.
In Nigeria, we still know we don't have electricity everywhere, we don't have data everywhere, we don't have broadband everywhere, and so on. What do you see as the implication of this?
Infrastructure. So infrastructure is going to make it fail. And so before you start talking about things like this, you should have allowed yourself to see how you can be more friendly with the telecom companies and say, you know what, we want to go into some sort of partnership with you people. And so we're going to reduce the tariffs we level on you people. We're going to reduce the taxes we level on you people so that you can help us build this infrastructure. But when you have a system that is still hard on the telecoms and you expect your infrastructure to come up overnight, we know that we're actually destined to not succeed on this matter, because the infrastructure is going to take a while to stabilize, and we've not even designed a good framework on partnerships that we're going to have with this existing service providers to give us good infrastructure. And so I don't see how this is going to work.
Okay. We have a lawyer, Wahab Shitu, joining us on phone right now. I told you we're going to have him back, and he's on right now. Good morning, Wahab Shitu. It's good to have you join us right now.
Good morning. Good morning.
Very good. Now, let me ask you this. There's so much controversy regarding the issue between the National Assembly on the amendment on the Electoral Act. Now, the judiciary seem to be intervening to ensure that the controversy is reduced. But some politicians have seen it as an interference in what the National Assembly is doing. What's your assessment on this?
Well, I think the first point to note is that we are operating a constitutional democracy. And under a constitutional democracy, actors are guided by the spirit and letters of the Constitution. And so, what has arisen is a constitutional issue. And when there's a constitutional issue, references can only be made to the provisions of the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? You know that under the Constitution and the Electoral Act, INEC is assigned the responsibility of organizing, supervising, and undertaking the conduct of elections. Now, if you say INEC has the right to organize, to undertake, as well as organize elections, then how do you then begin to interfere with that power donated to INEC by the Constitution by saying, oh, you want to regulate the sequence of elections? That means you are interfering with the exercise of powers of INEC vested on it by the Constitution. And if you say you are not doing that, and you have the powers to do that, then you go to the judiciary that is charged with the responsibility of interpreting the provisions of the Constitution. So as it is now, whether it is INEC that is right or National Assembly that is right, it's not something that anybody can pronounce upon except the judiciary. So if the judiciary is being called upon to exercise the jurisdiction of the matter, it cannot be any interference, because judiciary is charged with the responsibility of interpreting the provisions of the Constitution. When there's a dispute, and a dispute has indeed arisen now, it is the judiciary that can resolve the dispute. So, matters before the court, let the judiciary pronounce whether the National Assembly can direct INEC on how to organize elections, or whether INEC has the power to organize elections without being dictated to by anybody, including the National Assembly.
All right, but however, a lot of Nigerians and even many politicians, even senators, have said that the move to alter the sequence of the election to 2019 was particularly targeted at the president. I wonder, how is that? What's your take on this?
Well, I wouldn't sit here and begin to speculate on what must have informed the latest controversy. But one thing which is clear is that 2019 is around the corner, and they have vested interest in the outcome of the 2019 elections. So there are permutations here and there. So the suggestion that the move is targeted at the president may not be far from the truth, because if the presidential election is organized first and a particular candidate emerges, of course, you know, that will inform the attitude of voters in subsequent elections. So those who do not want President Muhammad Buhari there in 2019 are fuming. And that is why in the interest of the president also resisted the attempt to skim him out of 2019. But whether it is true or not is not the issue now. We know there are always vested interests. What is important is the Constitution. The Constitution will take care of vested interests. The Constitution will uphold the rule of law. So I think what Nigerians should be concerned is, what does the law say? What does the Constitution say? Does the National Assembly have the powers to dictate to INEC on how to organize elections? Or it does not have the power? Let the judiciary pronounce. And let all of us be guided by the pronouncement of the judiciary on this issue.
All right, Wahab Shitu, thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. All right, Ahmed, let me come back to you on this. One other area of amendment the National Assembly was seeking is the issue of correcting what happened in Kogi State, where former governor, late Abubakar Audu, died. He won the election as declared by INEC, but was not sworn into office, or was not declared, as at that time he wasn't declared. So the Constitution did not take care of that space.
No provision for it.
Exactly. So he took his deputy at that time, James Faleke, went to court to seek interpretation, and all of the IRC said, I should be sworn in as the next governor. Since my principal is not there, I was his running mate. And they said, no, it's not. Now, in all of those, they're trying to say, the new amendment is saying, now, if in that scenario, a candidate wins, or the party, because the party owns the candidate, wins an election, and he has not been sworn in yet, in that case, the whole exercise should be suspended for about 21 days for the election to be, for the party to conduct primaries and so on. Now, from your own perspective, how good is this?
I think it's fair. I think it's fair. You know, for me, in all of this, I just keep worrying myself with how much it's going to cost. Because then this is taxpayers' monies. And each time we try to suspend or postpone, there's a lot of money that has been paid into logistics and the time has been dragged. But I like the fact that we're trying to talk about this thing being enshrined into the Constitution and see if it happens in future, how we can actually curb the excesses, as the case may be. So fundamentally, I'm particularly happy that we're looking at this, and it's also important to remind ourselves that the law is a continual process. The law doesn't completely stand. It keeps it's work in progress, because as we move on every day, there are different scenarios, there's different cases that come up that help us reshape or shape or whatever to our laws. And again, you know, with regards to what Wahab was saying on the phone, it's at the end of the day, it boils down to the Constitution. The Constitution has already enshrined the responsibility or the powers that the three arms of government have. And so now the three arms of government have been put in that way to help curb the excesses of each and every one of them, should they be wanting to exercise so much powers. And I'm saying very clearly, if the Constitution allows the president to veto on the matter, fine and all good. If the judiciary is saying, give us time to look at the facts together and see if this is a matter that falls within our jurisdiction or not, fine and good. Let us give them the time. And if the legislature, on the other hand, is saying, oh yes, now that we have this and we know the stand of this and that, we're going to now decide if we want to, vote against or for. And if they're able to raise the 75%, as the case may be, we'll fine and good. But I hope it's not going to be an A and A, as the case may be.
Now, one other area that Nigerians were expecting some kind of amendment and for an introduction is the issue of diaspora voting. Nigerians who live outside the shores of the country have never voted, and Nigerians have been calling on this for there to be an amendment? South Africa and so many other African countries make provision for this, where maybe a week or two earlier, members, their citizens who live across the world can vote ahead of the election.
Yes. So again, it's work in progress, but we just talked about infrastructure, and we're looking at a country that has never taken too seriously data management systems. And when we talk about data management system, a lot of people keep thinking, what are these guys saying? These guys are coming from a different planet. They're coming, these young children, they don't know what we're talking about. But if we do not know how many people we're dealing with, if we do not have an idea of how many Nigerians exist, then I don't think we can ever be able to do anything, especially as it concerns technology. So yes, there are a lot of people from the diaspora that want to be part of this. There are a lot of influence from the diaspora that could actually change the dynamics of the kind of politics that we play. But because we do not have a system that gives the provision for them to take part in it, it cannot work. But I do support strongly that if we have an idea of who is a Nigerian, who isn't a Nigerian, we can clearly say, you know, regardless of borders, we've got technology that cuts across the whole world. We can have people from any part of the country, any part of the world actually voting from anywhere.
All right, we're still discussing the face-off between the National Assembly and the executive in Nigeria over electoral amendment bill. And we have with us in the studio Ahmed Buhari. He is a presidential aspirant for 2019 election, and we're looking forward to how things are going to. We had Wahab Shitu, a lawyer, join us earlier. We're still expecting another lawyer to join us, Boyega Kolade. But let's take a breather, and then we'll come back on this. Stay with us now. All right, thanks for staying with us. Yeah, it's good to be back again. We're discussing the face-off between the National Assembly and the presidency, the executive arm of government.
And the legislature. Yes. And we've been talking to Ahmed Buhari, of course, and he's giving us insight into the implications and other joining development issues. Now, we have joining us to talk on the issue as well, especially the legal aspect of it, the implications. We have Boyega Kolade. He is a lawyer. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us on the show now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The court has given an injunction. The National Assembly says it still wants to go ahead and will appeal it. Establish for us, first off, if the National Assembly has the jurisdiction to amend the Electoral Act without the court buttoning.
Well, as we all know, the National Assembly under the Constitution is empowered to make laws. That is the only constitutional duty they have. And that is why the undue conflict at times concerning execution of projects and other things will always make the executive, represented by the presidency and all, that is what brings conflict most times, because the executive will always want to jealously guard their powers and authorities. But the National Assembly too, as we all know, and as I've said earlier, they are to make laws, empowered by the Constitution to do so. So, either to start a new bill or to amend, it is their responsibility. However, where some of these issues have been clarified by the jurisprudence of the land, like through the courts, as had been done in this case, because there had been earlier issues like this, and the court said the INEC is to organize elections. That is also their constitutional duty, either in sequence or however it will be, should be arranged by INEC. So, whatever the National Assembly is to promulgate or is to bring out in form of law should have been based on the arrangements that INEC has made. The National Assembly cannot just make laws from the blues. That's why ordinarily there should be consultation. Laws are not just made. It's true, you have the powers to make laws, all laws, but you are also not operating in isolation, because it is INEC that has the burden. If the election fails, they will not call the National Assembly. If the arrangement, the sequence, the logistics and everything fails, it is the INEC that will be held responsible. And that is why the earlier decision that had been challenged in this way went in favor of INEC, not the National Assembly. So I think this is the way it should be, and the injunction that had been granted is very rightly granted, I think, so that at the end of the day, all of the persons involved, the National Assembly, INEC, the presidency, and all, would sit down and understand themselves before we push forward.
All right. Now, the issue of the sequence for the election, 2019 election, seems to be the contention here.
Yes.
But you have also alluded to the fact that the National Assembly or the legislature is their constitutional responsibility to make laws, which means the law that gave birth to INEC, it came from the National Assembly, and they have the powers to amend anytime. And that is what they are doing. So what makes the sequence, or the bill to amend the sequence, what makes it different from the original responsibility of the National Assembly?
What makes it different is the fact that it is not the National Assembly that will organize the election. If INEC has come up with the way they believe the sequence of the election will bring ease, peace, and, you know, a trouble-free arrangement to them, and basically to Nigerians, then they are performing their constitutional role. Yes, it's true the National Assembly has the powers to make laws. Yes, but they shouldn't do it without giving adequate consideration to the proposal from INEC. Okay. And that is it.
Well, some of the reasons INEC gave at the instance of that amendment, really, many Nigerians talked about, Nina mentioned funds and all that, and Nigerians talked about that not being an issue, really, that whatever Nigerians want, because the lawmakers are on the side of the people, of the side of democracy, so whatever they want, the proper thing should be done. I think that's the way it should be put. And Nigerians somehow, so far, seem to like this. So you think that it's not good enough, that it has to be at the convenience of the electoral body, whatever amendment that is made, and not at the expense of whatever, but on the side of the people, either way.
How do you gauge how you gauge who is on the side of the people is the issue. Because we have seen the National Assembly come out with very selfish laws. Okay. We have seen them come up with laws that are just meant to up their own game. They are not about Nigerians. We have seen several of them, you know, they came in and decided to alter the protocol arrangement of the country, making sure the Senate President, the Speaker, comes before the Chief Judge of the Federation. They altered it. Okay. So,
all right, we don't have all the time right now. Ahmed, you were shaking your head when you was.
Yes, because again, you know, I mentioned something earlier, and I said, what is most important here is for the lawmakers, for the legislature to understand that they are representatives, and before they can make a statement on any matter or a decision on any matter, they should go back to the constituency, sit down with the stakeholders, and come back. Because at the end of the day,
that's the consultation he was talking
exactly.
about.
At the end of the day, it's the people that matters the most. But in all of this discussion that we're having, three things are very important here. We have to uphold our laws. we have to protect the people, and then we have to protect our democracy.
All right.
And in trying to achieve all of this, we would have to be very careful.
And for laws to be made, there's supposed to be a public hearing. They're supposed to have their own input and all that.
Consultation.
All right, yes. Ahmed Buhari, thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank
and of course, Boyega Kolade, your lawyer, thank you for coming as well.
Thank you. Yes. All right.